This little baby is actually my 30th birthday gift from my mom, and so I felt it was only fitting for a video about life lessons from my 20s that we break in my new KitchenAid, which is like never something I thought I'd like beg for a birthday gift. Break in my new KitchenAid, making my absolute favorite cookies, and kind of talk about the life lessons from my 20s. If you are currently in your 20s right now, I know you're probably struggling with many of the same things that I did, so I hope this video can bring you some peace. And if you're already past your 20s and your 30s and beyond, maybe you have some advice for me and for others who are moving into their 30s or who are still in their 20s that you can help us with in the comments. So, let's get cooking. Let's get cracking. Why do I feel so shy? We're making my absolute favorite cookie recipe, which is the oatmeal chocolate chip cookies from A Cozy Kitchen. I converted the recipe to grams so I can easily measure and make the exact same recipe every single time. If you have never baked with weight rather than volume measurements, this is going to change your life. While I finish gathering ingredients, let's go ahead and talk about some of my regrets from my 20s. For me, the hardest part and probably like the thing that defines my 20s is the transition from college to adulthood, which is funny because like that started at the beginning, but it kind of just stuck with me, and that has been my ongoing struggle throughout this entire decade, really. So it's like, I worked really hard in college and I did super, super well, but the reality is like once I graduated, my GPA didn't matter. The fact that I made A's in every class didn't matter. What actually mattered was who I knew and what relationships I had built. I just didn't realize in college that, okay, even if I'm doing great, I understand everything that's going on in the class, I should still try to get to know my professors personally, because those are gonna be the people who help you get interviews, who help you get jobs, who write recommendations for you. So after graduation, I didn't get any job interviews. I don't think I got a single one. I got lucky in that a job opened up at my internship on that same team, and so that's what I did, but that's not necessarily the job I wanted, but it's the job I got. And I don't think I was very good at that job, to be honest. One thing that I am super proud of from my 20s is the fact that we moved to France, and then also that recently we moved to Puerto Rico. After studying abroad in France, I fell in love with it, and I wanted it to be kind of like a 10-year plan, right? But it ended up that we were able to move there pretty much a year after I graduated. And so that's something I worked really, really hard on, and I'm really, really proud of that we were able to do. And it leads me to kind of like my next struggle and regret. And one of my struggles is I'm a very passive person. I wait for things to happen to me. I don't often seek them out on my own. And so because of that, without my partner, I probably would not have moved to France. I would have been too scared. I would have talked myself out of it at the end. And so I'm really thankful that I have him to kind of push me out of my comfort zone to try new things. Because without that, I probably would just still be in that first job I had. Even though I didn't like it, I probably would still be doing it just because it was the easiest thing to do. Just keep doing what I did. It's taken me a long time to come to this conclusion, but I do regret leaving France, and I don't know. At the time, it seemed like the right idea because I was really upset and I was really unhappy while we were there. But it's we had already made plans to come back, and then a month before we left, the thing that was stressing me out so much while we were there, which was getting my residence card, a month before we left, I got my residence card at last. And then after I got that, I just felt like a wave of relief sweep over me. But we already had plans to come back to the United States. And so, I don't know, I don't think we would have the life and the level, I don't know, as many things if we decided to stay in France. But I really wish I had their healthcare. And I really miss having public transportation. And I feel like a lot of that stuff, you just can't get that same quality of life anywhere in the US except for New York City. But New York City is super expensive and I don't want to live in New York City. Had you asked me like 2 years after we left France, I still would have said no, I don't regret leaving. But kind of like looking back now, I do regret it a little bit. And it's something that if I went back, I would do differently, but I have to accept it for what it is and learn from it. And that's partially why we moved to Puerto Rico. So yeah. I don't know why, but this mixer wouldn't work in any of our actual outlets. So I plugged it into our battery and now it's working for some reason. Who knows? Whatever, we're in the kitchen, it's dark, but we're in here. That actually brings me to one of my quote unquote successes. And I feel really happy that I started this YouTube channel, right before we moved to France, and was really active with it in France because I have gotten so many incredible opportunities just because of this channel. And this channel isn't big. I'm sure like a couple hundred people will watch this. It's not like the biggest, best channel in the world. But because of this, I've gotten to do so many cool things. Like through this channel was how I started working with brands. I think the first brand I worked with was, it's a language app, but I can't remember the name. And then I worked with Fantastique after that, which was my favorite French learning app, and I still really like it, though I'm not focusing on French now. But that led into working with other brands. Lingo Deer, I got to work with Lingo Deer on a separate project last year, and then even with Joby recently. And so I'm so grateful that I made this channel. And actually another cool thing that no one ever really saw was because of my YouTube channel, I got to film this like English travel show with a Chinese company, and that's definitely one of the highlights of my 20s because I absolutely love that. I really enjoyed that. I made the channel kind of on a whim just because I wanted to share my life, learn more about video, and it ended up being something really, really good for myself and my future, and kind of changed my trajectory for what I was going to be doing going forward. While we were in France, it's when I started teaching English. So when we came back, I continued to teach English because I wanted the flexibility that offered. And I ended up getting another office job eventually, that study abroad position, which then got eliminated. And then I started my photography business. But one thing I've really, really struggled with is feeling like I don't have a career or I'm not successful. That I was like very overachieving. I've always been an overachiever. I've always been like the best at what I do. And I think this is another reason why I just really struggled with the transition to being an adult. The one thing that always motivated me, which was being successful, being ambitious, having a career, has been the thing that has confused me the most and given me the most difficulty throughout my 20s because it just changed so many times. Like first I was a marketer, then I spent 2 years teaching English, then I spent 4 years as the study abroad coordinator, and then I spent 2 months filming a travel show, and then I took 2 months off, and then I started a photography business in 2020 at the beginning of the pandemic, which then lasted like 2.5 months because then I didn't know what to do. And then it's like I've been trying slowly, photography has started to work, but then I started doing content creation again. And then we moved to Puerto Rico, so I don't really have photography client. I took like a whole year off after we moved here. And so like I don't feel successful. And so that's been the really, really, it's gonna make me cry. Oh, why am I crying? For me, I love the flexibility. I love that I can go do whatever I want, whenever I want. But not having that traditional path where it's like I have an office job and I know where I'm going next and what the next steps are, and I'm getting a raise and I'm making consistent income. I've traded all of that for flexibility and adventures, but I have to say, like, it has been really, really hard for me, and I think that I have not been as successful as I could have been because I'm just not a consistent person. I have never, ever been consistent, and so I think a large part of my 20s was kind of just coming to terms with that, is that I am not going to be the person who wakes up and is, you know, super productive every single day. Like, I'm very moody. Like, I have really high days and I have really low days, and what I'm able to accomplish on those days is different. Like, I'm just not gonna wake up every day and be 100% rearing to go, putting my face on camera. And so that has been actually like it's helping me come to peace with who I am. And the thing is, you know, I struggle with this because I thought, like, oh, if I have a better planner, or if I'm more organized, like, I can be consistent. But the reality is I'm not consistent. And then when I try to put myself into that box, I just feel so constrained by it that then I like rebel against it. So I have stopped putting that unrealistic expectation on myself to be consistent and just take it day by day, step by step. Another thing that I'm very, very proud of from my 20s is, even though I don't feel like a success, I did finally take the jump and start my own photography business. I started taking photos when I was in college, and so it's something that I kind of just did as a side hustle or as a hobby for a really long time. And I remember during my internship or at my first job, one of my team leads saying, like, Regan, why don't you just start doing photography? Like, why are you here? That stuck with me because I was like, wow, why am I here? But I never felt like photography was something that I could do professionally. And so when I finally took that jump in January 2020 and decided, I don't care what anyone says, I'm a photographer, that was a really big step for me. And I'm really proud that I was finally able to do that, to just like step out of my comfort zone, take on this title that I didn't really feel comfortable taking on, but has led me to so many wonderful opportunities and so many really great friendships along with my YouTube channel. It was hard for me to take that leap to say, quote unquote, I'm a photographer, but it's something that I'm really proud that I finally did, rather than being scared of failure. And then, kind of related to what I talked about earlier, the last thing that I'm really, really proud of that we did, and that I did in my 20s, was, okay, yes, we left France, and ultimately I regret that, but we had a wonderful opportunity and we were able to move to Puerto Rico, which I do think I fit in a little better with the culture in France. I'm kind of a shy person, and so while I don't think that I necessarily fit in perfectly with the culture here, like it's not a natural fit, I'm happy that we're able to step out of our comfort zones again, live in another culture, get to learn a new language, and I don't know, there's always something that you can learn by stepping out of your comfort zone. And I'm just so proud that we were able to accomplish not just like one international move, but 2 international moves. Even though Puerto Rico is part of the US, whatever, it's just still a very, very different culture from the one we were living in Oklahoma, and our life here is super different. So, and honestly, the move here was really hard. Our first year here was really difficult. It was so much more challenging than our move to France, which I thought it would actually be easier. The fact that we've made it, I've settled in, I'm back to making videos and working again, I just feel like we really, really did a lot with that, and I am super, super proud. Okay, that's all I have to say for now. I'm gonna let those cookies finish chilling and talk about what I want going into my 30s. Okay. I feel like in all of my videos lately, I'm just sitting here on the couch. Not even on the couch. I feel like I'm just sitting here next to the couch in all of my videos recently. But the cookies didn't finish cooking till like after it got dark last night, so I decided I'd just finish recording today and eat them with you.
They're so good.
Looking forward into this next decade, I really want to focus on being more proactive and less reactive. I think just so much of the past, like my 20s, was reacting to the changes around me or reacting to opportunities. I didn't necessarily like ask for what I wanted, whether that's in like personal life or my professional life. I just kind of waited for good things to happen to me. And when they happened to me, I was happy, but I never really like sought those things out on my own. I just want to be less scared and more open in the coming years to what I want. Not just dreaming of my dreams, but actually like actively working towards them bravely, even if I'm not where I think I should be yet to achieve them, taking those steps every day and asking for what I want, because I never know what can happen. And another thing I want to do going into my 30s is be better about cultivating and maintaining my friendships. Moving to Puerto Rico has really reminded me how hard it is to make new friends, especially as an adult. So I want to spend more time keeping in touch with the friends that I already have. You know, I've spent so much time building these friendships. These are people that I really care about. So not just like forget about them when I'm not in physical proximity to them, but like, you know, set reminders in my calendar and stuff to check in with people so that I don't feel like, oh, I have no friends. And I think that's really it. It's kind of interesting to look back and just see how much my personality has changed since, you know, I was in college to even when I started YouTube, which is about like in my early to mid 20s to now. If this video resonated with you, that feels like therapy speak. If you found something that you liked in this video and that you want to take from it, let me know in the comments. If you are in your 30s and you have some advice to give, go to the comments. Comments. But I'm gonna finish eating my delicious cookies. I'll link the recipe in the description, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.